And coming up on African Perspective this evening, we're joined by SABC News Foreign Editor and EP of African Perspective to tell us about it. So, Sophie, let's start with the African Union Summit that has just wrapped up, South Africa taking up its chairmanship. So just take us through the final pointers of that and how much of a success the summit was.
Well, I think the new chairperson has his work cut out. That is President Cyril Ramaphosa as the new chair of the AU, but also chairing the APRM, the African Peer Review Mechanism, but also having to deal with the committee that deals with climate change. And therefore, it's a lot of work for him. On the other hand, he has to deal with matters back home. But what I can say is that the other important issue in terms of the summit itself, it was the election or the appointment or the selection, I don't know how to describe it, of a secretary who is going to lead the African Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat in Accra, Ghana, that is Wamkele Mene. He is a South African, but there were many other candidates from different parts of the continent who had applied because it was a process of interviews by professionals. But there was a bit of a standoff in terms of how that was supposed to be concluded. The summit was supposed to just endorse a candidate who was high on the list, but Nigeria objected, saying that they feel that it must be a woman, and the woman in this case was a woman from Nigeria. Therefore, heads of state and government had to vote, and finally Wamkele Mene, the very same person who was number one in the list, got the nod, and he is going to Accra very soon to go and start the Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat there.
Okay, so speaking about the African Union having its work cut out from developments happening in the Sudan, we've seen that the interim government saying that they're willing to hand over former Sudanese President Hassan Omar Al Bashir to the ICC. How do you see this playing out?
I think it's going to be a difficult one for South Africa in particular. I would recall that when he visited South Africa, attending a AU meeting here in South Africa during President Jacob Zuma's tenure, he had to leave the summit prematurely because there was a push that he should be arrested because South Africa is a signatory to the REM statute. And unfortunately, that matter is with us now again, because now the chairperson is our president, President Cyril Ramaphosa. You know, when he took office, there were reports and indication that South Africa will reconsider its position of pulling out of the ICC. And now, you know, the position of the AU was clear that member countries should not cooperate with the ICC until such time the ICC is transformed, because there's a view that it's targeting African leaders. You remember the Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta and the Vice President William Ruto both had to appear before the ICC, and after that there was a push and a lobbying that AU must take a position against the ICC. So now the question is, how is President Ramaphosa going to handle this matter, looking at the fact that we have domesticated the ICC act here in South Africa, and therefore we have to cooperate with ICC. So are you going to have this one, the view that as South Africa, we are part of this, we want to cooperate, but take a different head and say, no, in line with the AU, this is the position. So we're waiting to see how he is going to handle this issue. And also, we know that there are reports that others are feeling strong that he must go to Ethiopia. And I know that the former President Thabo Mbeki, because he seized with the Darfur question, and that's the atrocities that were allegedly committed in Darfur that he has to answer for. He was supposed to come back. He didn't. He was at the summit and he came back only today because he had to meet with Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy and other leaders. And I suspect, it's not confirmed, I suspect that he was busy with this matter, and before they left the summit, they knew that that was the position of Sudan, even though we didn't know. And it's a big one.
And very quickly, you'll also be looking at the conflict in Libya on African Perspective this evening. Which angle?
The conflict on Libya is part of what we did last week, but this time around today we'll be having a exclusive interview with the incoming Secretary of the African Continental Free Trade Area, Wamkele Mene, to unpack his vision and plan in terms of ensuring that this institution serves the citizens of the continent, and we have a better continent on issues of development and growth of the economy and trade among African member countries.
All right, thank you very much, Sophie Mokoena, SABC Foreign News Editor. Do watch African Perspective this evening at 9 p.m.